Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Review Board for the National Register of Historic Places. My name is Kristen Anderson. I'm currently chair of the review board. The board's purpose this evening is to consider the nomination of properties to the National Register of Historic Places. As most of you know, the National Register is a federal list of those places deemed worthy of preservation. A nomination form has been completed for each of the properties that will be considered tonight. Each nomination form has been sent to the review board members, and each member has had an opportunity to study it prior to this meeting. The owners of nominated properties, local officials, and interested local groups have been notified of this meeting. All have been invited to send written comments about the nomination and to attend this meeting. Some of you may wish to speak this evening about a particular property. You're welcome to do so, and I encourage you to address yourself to the question of whether that property meets the criteria of significance for the National Register. These criteria are the standards against which the review board will evaluate the nominations. This evaluation is the board's only assignment. These criteria have been established by federal regulation. Copies of the criteria have been sent to owners of nominated properties and to the other parties I mentioned earlier. A description of the National Register program has also been sent to them. Each of the nominations will be presented by a staff member. Persons viewing the meeting remotely will then be given an opportunity to comment. These comments should be limited to 3 minutes. The State Historic Preservation Review Board will then discuss the nomination and a vote by the board will follow. Should a nomination be determined this evening to meet the criteria for inclusion in the National Register, the nomination will be forwarded to the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer, Amy Spong. Should she agree that the property meets the criteria and that the nomination is in proper form, she will sign the nomination and forward it to the National Register office in Washington, D.C., where it will be reviewed once more. The process is a lengthy one, but it is calculated to subject each property to rigorous evaluation. Before we begin, I would like the members of the State Historic Preservation Review Board to introduce themselves, briefly stating the role they fill on the review board and their particular expertise. And as you know, we will go alphabetically, which means I start, and then we'll see whether anyone's joined us since I started reading the statement. I'm Kristen Anderson. I'm one of the architectural historians on the board, and I teach at Augsburg University. Is Pam here? Board Member Brunfeld? Okay, Board Member Decker.
John Decker. I'm a member at large, a retired archivist and researcher.
Board Member Dyer. Not here yet. Board Member James.
Hello, my name is Elliot James. I'm one of the historians on the board. I am an assistant professor of history at University of Minnesota Morris.
Thank you very much, Elliot. Board Member Koski.
I am Philip Koski. I serve on the board as a historical architect, and I am a practicing architect in Minneapolis.
Board Member Mann, are you here? Okay, Board Member Olson.
Hi, my name's Steve Olson. I am a member at large and a practicing civil engineer.
Thank you. Board Member Schulke.
I am Chris Schulke. I'm a member at large. I'm a public historian, executive director at the Otter Tail County Historical Society.
Thank you. Board Member Solomonson.
Hello, I'm an architectural historian and I teach in the School of Architecture at the University of Minnesota.
Thanks, Kate. Board Member Stark.
I am John Stark. On the board, I serve as the historical architect and I practice architecture in Minneapolis.
Thank you. Board Member Warner.
I'm Mary Warner. I'm a member at large and I'm a local historian.
Thanks. And I don't see Frank's name on the list, but I'll call him out anyhow. Board Member White. Okay, so now we have to do the roll call, Amy. Is that correct? Not that we have.
Excuse me, I think you forgot me. This is Andrea Lavasser.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andrea. Hi, Andrea, Board Member Lavasser. Will you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I am the prehistoric archaeologist on the board, and I'm retired from the Chippewa National Forest, where I was the forest archaeologist and historic program manager.
Excellent. Thank you for jumping back in. And I guess we'll do the roll call and make it official. Board Member Brunfeld. Board Member Decker,
Aye, here.
Board Member Dyer, Board Member James,
Present.
Board Member Koski,
Here.
Board Member Lavasser,
I'm here.
Board Member Mann, Board Member Olson,
Present.
Board Member Schulke,
Here.
Board Member Solomonson,
Here.
Board Member Stark,
Here.
Board Member Warner,
Here.
Board Member White, Board Member Lavasser.
I'm here again.
Excellent. Okay, very good. All right, Amy, I think it's your turn.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Spong. I'm the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer, and we have our National Register SHPO team with us this evening. We have Jenny Way, Dennis Gardner, David Mather, and Michelle Decker. And then John Disher is our communications person. So you won't see all of their names because a few of them just say Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office, but we are all here as that's our SHPO team this evening. I do have a few announcements if you can just bear with me. I know we've got a kind of a light agenda tonight. So first announcement is that this public meeting is being held virtually under Minnesota Statutes 13D.021. That's because we are still within our pandemic, and we have been meeting this way, as you all know, for we're almost on year 2. And we just have to make sure that we take roll call for all of the decisions, the votes, and make sure that everyone can be heard and public has the ability to speak as well. My next announcement, I'm just going to see if this works and share my screen really quickly with you all. But I'm really pleased to be able to announce that if you haven't seen it in the press releases or in social media, are you seeing a screen? No. Okay.
Seeing you.
It worked this morning.
Are there
Oh, wait a minute.
buttons
I
to
got
share
it.
that you got there?
I got it. Okay. Now it should come up. Okay. All right. So we have posted our press release on our latest tax credit economic analysis on our tax credit, and we've got really promising numbers that came out of our state fiscal year 21 that I just wanted to share with this board. This is the actual report that I brought up that is on our website. I can put the link in the chat in a little while. But there's a really great infographic that's been added to the report this time around that I've seen getting posted here and there on social media. But we had a record number of applications, and that was probably felt by this board as well by an uptick in commercial historic district nominations last year, as well as individual commercial buildings coming through to be listed on the National Register. So 34 applications were filed, had Part 2s approved last year, which is almost 3 times what we have averaged in the first 9 years of this program. We've had the state program for 10 years. So we, as many of you may know, we added 2 additional temporary design reviewers to handle the bigger load. Unfortunately, the National Register team did not get additional staff help to process their National Register nominations. So we had 1.4 billion in economic activity that will be generated by these approved projects, and for every dollar of tax credit created, we have $11.30 of economic activity. In years past, that has been around $9. We've had $7, so I believe this is one of the highest. It's just a great report. Take some time to look at it. It's got some of our basic kind of return on investment information, as well as some case studies where we do a little bit deeper dive into some specific projects. And we kind of go back to some older projects and look at their property taxes and how that has evolved over a few years. Each year we've kind of been adding a few more features or data points. This year we added a comparison of a Minneapolis rehab into housing with a brownfield development of new construction not far from the rehabbed building, and did a comparison on that. And the per unit costs were lower on the rehabbed property. So that was a really interesting thing. And then the other kind of piece of data, we picked Duluth, St. Paul, and Minneapolis, and we mapped all 10 years of projects that were approved for the state historic tax credit over the last 10 years, and compared it with the social vulnerability index that takes into a lot of different factors of demographics, social, economic, various levels, various data points, and mapped kind of where the projects were being built. So in Minneapolis, there was about 45% of the 10 years of tax credit projects were in high vulnerability neighborhoods, a little bit higher in St. Paul, 50%. And then in Duluth, almost all of the projects of the last 10 years were completed in high vulnerability neighborhoods. So just wanted to point that out. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, I would encourage you all to do that. I'm going to stop sharing. Right, and I'm going to give presentation back to Jenny, I believe. Finally, I'm also really pleased and excited to announce that our new statewide historic preservation plan for years 2022 to 2032 was formally approved by the National Park Service on December 23rd, 2021. So it was a huge accomplishment. We did a lot of work internally. The staff is really pleased and relieved to have the work done. We weren't expecting to have to complete it, the engagement and the completion during COVID, during civil unrest, just any number of things that we had to kind of redirect a little bit. But we already have our CLGs, our certified local governments, are using the new goals and objectives as they draft their new applications. We have an application deadline for grant funds that's coming up very soon. And we are in the final layout. We did send a kind of a not final layout to the Park Service. So we're completing that final layout. It's at the editors. Last week it went to the editor. So we're very excited to be able to be, sending this out shortly. We're going to be working on a communications plan, but I really want to thank again this board, your interviews, and for for helping us get to where we need to be with identifying goals over the next 10 years. So we're excited. We're going to start as we apply for our federal funding for the current fiscal year that we're in. We will start using these new goals and objectives. And so all of our activities that we are going to be planning for and looking forward to, we're going to be matching with goals and objectives that are in the plan. So we're going to be starting right away in using it. And I would encourage you all to take a look and see where maybe your organizations can also adopt some of the goals and objectives that are in there as well. So, and then finally, I have one last announcement, but the SHPO team has been informed that sadly this is going to be board member Mary Warner's last meeting. She has submitted her resignation, but I just really want to thank and recognize board member Warner for her service to this board, her participation, your contributions, your perspective that you brought. really, it's been great to have you, and we really want to thank you for your service. And we can all take our mutes off and give you a round of applause.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. I have really enjoyed being on this board and learning so much history and so much about what the National Register means. I can actually talk about it now and feel like I know what I'm talking about.
That's great. Well, thank you again, Mary, and let's stay connected, and we'll look forward to, you've got lots of new things on your horizon, so we'll be looking forward to staying connected. Great.
Thanks.
Okay, and then I think before I hand it over to Chair Anderson, Dennis has one announcement. I think you're on mute, Dennis.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. You know, it's nice to see all of you. It's been a little while since we got together last. The only thing I wanted to mention is that I can't remember exactly when it was, but I believe John Stark had asked once before, why don't we give an update on the properties that come through the review board when you get done reviewing them, they get sent on to the keeper. You know, what happened? What happened? Did it get passed? Did it not get passed? That sort of thing. So I just wanted to, you know, we're going to try to be a little bit better about that. So I just wanted to let you know that in our August meeting, you know, we had, let's see here, we had 5 properties. The Sherburne Community Building in Sherburne, the Wyndham Park Historic District down in Winona, the Excelsior Commercial Historic District in Excelsior out in the western part of the metro, the Minnehaha, which was the vessel that's also in Excelsior, and then the Alano Society of Minneapolis Clubhouse. All 5 of those properties have indeed been added to the National Register of Historic Places. So the National Park Service agrees that they are indeed historically significant. And then for the November meeting, November of 2021, we had 6 properties. The Northern Pacific Depot in Otter Tail County in Fergus Falls, the Lewis House and Medical Office, which is in Henning, which is also Otter Tail County, the Hopkins Commercial Historic District and Hopkins, the Church of the Incarnation and Rectory, and that's in Minneapolis, the Women's Club of Minneapolis, which is in Minneapolis, and then St. Olaf's Norwegian Lutheran Church, also in Minneapolis. And I just want to say that all of those properties have passed or have been accepted to the National Register by the keeper of the National Register, with the exception of St. Olaf's. St. Olaf's is going in late. The keeper hasn't looked at it yet. We had some massaging that we had to do on that particular property. And so that went in either today or yesterday, but we'll find out here in about 45 days or so if it's accepted by the keeper of the National Register. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that, or just let you know what's going on. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. I think we're ready for approving the minutes from the November 16th meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? We need to know about the minutes. If not, roll call time. Board Member Decker.
Aye.
Board Member James.
Aye.
Board Member Koski.
Aye.
Board Member Lavasser.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Schulke.
Aye.
Board Member Solomonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark.
Aye.
Board Member Warner.
I was just wondering if we needed a motion and a second.
Oh, good idea.
Like we're voting.
Maybe I should resign too. Mary and I, we can leave. All right, Mary, would you like to
make a motion to? I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
And would someone like to second the motion?
Second. Oh,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Would anyone like to change their vote, or should we do the roll call again? Amy, you want to make the call on that? No
I
one's
don't
stepping
think
in.
we'll
They've
need to
changed
change
it.
unless someone objects to that.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
And I just need to vote myself. I say aye. All right. Thank you. And Mary, thanks especially. What are we going to do without you?
She can't leave the board.
She can't leave.
I don't know, but I say I as well.
Oh, thank you, Board Member Warner. All right, we're ready for nominations, I think. If Ginny's ready for the nominations, we're starting with Calvary Lutheran Church in Minneapolis, Hennepin County.
I am ready. I will share my screen now.
Thank you.
All right, can everybody see that? Hearing nothing, I'm going to go with yes. Tonight's first property is the Calvary Lutheran Church in Minneapolis, Hennepin County. The author is Rachel Peterson from Hess Royce and Company. Calvary Lutheran Church comprises a sanctuary and education wing, both constructed in 1930, and a parish house built in 1953. The sanctuary was designed in the English Gothic Revival style, expressed through ornate doorways, intricate stone details around the windows, and stonework on the tower. The education wing and parish house use the same architectural vocabulary, although in a more subdued manner to create an architecturally unified whole. Here we see the parish house and sanctuary. View is to the northeast. Located in the southeast corner of Chicago Avenue South and East 39th Street in Minneapolis, in a primary residential neighborhood, the building has a U-shaped footprint with the sanctuary at the north of the site, the parish house to the south, connected by the education wing on the east side. A small courtyard is between the sanctuary and the parish house. Here we see a site plan of the building with the various building uses labeled. The sanctuary has variegated tan brick walls with limestone details. It has a complex mass formed by the central nave, a narthex at the west end, a tower at the northwest corner, transepts at the east end of the nave, and two secondary entrances that project from the central massing. The building sections are all different heights. At the top left is the sanctuary, view looking southwest. At the bottom right is a view of the rear of the building. The view is to the west. An ornate stone surround typical of the late Gothic Revival style frames the main entrance, and Calvary Lutheran Church is engraved in Gothic script above the door opening. A pair of historic wood-paneled doors are deeply recessed into the surround, creating a Gothic porch. All window openings have Gothic arches and delicate stone tracery of varying intricacies. At left is the main entrance to the sanctuary, camera facing east, and at right is an image of the church in 1930. In the late 19th century, there was substantial pressure on churches to begin offering services in English instead of the languages used when they were organized. In 1911, a group of parishioners, unsatisfied with the limited English offerings of the South Minneapolis St. Paul's Lutheran Church, coalesced as the St. Paul's Sunday School. The church purchased a property at Chicago Avenue and 39th Street and built a small chapel for the school, which held both church services and Sunday school worship entirely in English. At left is the interior of the sanctuary, showing the nave and north transept. The view is to the northeast. At right is an interior view of the sanctuary in 1930. In 1923, the Sunday school separated from its mother church and became an independent congregation called Calvary Lutheran Church. At the time, Calvary Lutheran had 212 members and 66 children enrolled in the Sunday school. By the end of the decade, the church had grown to 550 members with 500 children, far outstripping the capacity of its original chapel. At left is the nave and choir loft, view is to the west. At right is the narthex, the view is to the northeast. Lang and Rogland were hired by Calvary Lutheran to design a new and expanded building in the early 1930s. After demolition of the original chapel and an ambitious construction schedule, the new Calvary Lutheran Church opened on December 21st, 1930. Here are details of the sanctuary's south wall. The southeasternmost bay of the education wing can be seen just to the right of the transept in the image on the left. So here's the education wing. You can see that secondary entrance. Here's a main entrance to the sanctuary. Both images are facing northeast. The growing Sunday school was one of the primary reasons why Calvary Lutheran embarked on the new building project. The new education wing provided classroom space for the school, meeting space for the church board, and utility and storage space for the church. However, Within 15 years, the expanded space was again insufficient, and Calvary Lutheran hired Lang and Rogland to design the parish house addition in 1947, although construction would not begin until years later. At left is the first floor of the education wing. This is a view to the south. And at right is the second floor of the education wing. We seeing a view to the northeast. The education wing and the 1953 parish house are both 2 stories tall with finished basements. The walls are variegated tan brick with bands of stone below the first floor windows and above the second floor windows. While the materials are in keeping with the more ornate sanctuary, the education wing and parish house are simpler in their detailing. The effect is one cohesive design illustrating the architect's skill. At left is a view of the north side of the parish house. The view is to the southeast. At right is a view of the south side of the parish house. The view is to the northeast. The interior layout of the parish hall was designed to meet the church's need for more classroom meeting space with a focus on flexibility. On the first and second floors, most of the classrooms on the south side of the corridor are divided by folding partition walls, which can be opened to create more space for larger groups and activities. And I failed to record the positions of these 2 particular photographs, but we can see here the decorative stone fireplace and the partition walls that can fold in the right-hand image. The period of significance for this property begins in 1930, the year the sanctuary was completed, and ends in 1953 with the construction of the parish hall. The level of significance is local. The National Register criterion is C. The area of significance is architecture. And the property also meets criterion consideration A, which is necessary for religious properties. The property meets this criterion because it is not being nominated for religious purposes. Instead, it is being nominated for its architecture. Lang and Rogland is a prominent local architectural firm that specialized in churches and later church additions. Calvary Lutheran is a leading example of their work and exhibits the hallmark features of the church's designs. As such, it is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. The current owner is participating in the state and federal historic tax credit programs. The property has been certified by the National Park Service as a certified historic structure through the Part 1 application process. We do have one piece of correspondence for this property. On January 24th, 2022, John Smoley from the City of Minneapolis Community Planning and Economic Development Department writes, quote, "At their January 18th, 2022 meeting, the Heritage Preservation Commission of the City of Minneapolis unanimously recommended listing the subject property in the National Register of Historic Places." End quote.
Thanks, Ginny.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak about this property?
This is Rachel Peterson from Hess Rice. I don't have anything substantive to say, but I am here if anybody has any questions about the nomination.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Anyone else? Okay, how about the board? Comments, questions from the board about this nomination? Board Member Olson.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's Rachel, Dennis, Jenny, Philip, or John is the right one to answer it, but it talks about buttresses in the nomination form, and I think the elements I see in the structure are pilasters, and I'm not sure if there's a difference in terminology, if pilasters or buttresses is the right phrase to be using there.
I'll try to respond. The term buttress is something that is related to the verb to buttress, to reinforce a wall structure typically, and it's usually a thickened pier on the exterior of a building. And what people usually think of are the flying buttresses on Gothic cathedrals, for example, where they're really separated and then bridging back to the original nave wall. But here, I think it's just a way of describing those piers on the outside of the building.
Thank you.
You should feel free to correct me.
Board Member Olson, does that do the trick? Help you out?
Thank you. Yep, it helps. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sometimes we use stylized buttress just to let people know that it's not a flying buttress. I think that's probably just because, so there's no real confusion.
Board Member Stark has a comment or question.
Yeah, good answer, Philip. The couple questions I've got. 1953 as the ending date is when the parish hall was built. And the parish hall, though, is part of the historic property. It's not a non-contributing building. I was just wondering why that date?
I think I misunderstood your question. The period of significance runs from the construction of the sanctuary through the construction of the parish hall because all three elements of the property are contributing.
Okay, yeah. It doesn't go up to 50 years old or anything. It just stops at 1953
No.
is my question.
Oh, I see. Because the criterion under which we're listing the property is architecture. So in 1953, when the construction was complete, was when the property achieved its significance.
Okay, thanks, Ginny.
Certainly.
A couple other questions then. There was no mention of an organ. I don't know if there isn't an organ in there, or if the organ, if it was, it would be as part of the historical portion of the building.
I would defer to Rachel about whether or not there is or is not an organ. If it is within the church, then it would be considered, unless it's somehow integrated into the architecture, it's considered furniture. So while it would,
yeah, a pipe organ would be built in. Electronic organ would be just sitting on the floor, right?
Exactly.
That's what I'm looking for. Is if there's something built in that I'm missing.
Oh, okay, Rachel. I didn't see anything in the notes.
There is an organ. It's in a special organ room above the sacristy. So those two really ornate, kind of Gothic-y looking grates that face out towards the nave, those are for sound for the organ. So it's hidden, but it's there. And I think that is mentioned in the nomination. But if it's not, we do know who made that organ, and I can add that in.
Yeah. Sometimes acknowledging the organ builder, if it's a historic pipe organ or something like that, it's always interesting. The other question is, and I see in the photos that some pews were removed for more flexible seating in front, and I don't recall that being mentioned in there, or if that has any effect on what's being nominated.
I do not recall whether or not it's mentioned or not. It would not necessarily have any effect while it is a loss of historic material. If the pews were original, then, but it's not a sufficient loss to negate the integrity of the property. But if it's not in there, we certainly can mention it.
Right. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thanks, John. Any other questions, comments? Ginny and Rachel, I did have a question. This is Board Member Anderson about the kind of the through line from the origins of the church. It lists St. Paul's Church, which, if I'm thinking of the right one, is up on Portland, north of Franklin, a Norwegian American congregation. But then later in the nomination, in the footnotes, it mentions Swedish. And I'm wondering if there was some kind of abrupt break, or if we've got the right genealogy for the church formation here, because it's kind of unusual that a Norwegian Lutheran congregation would spawn a Swedish congregation.
I don't remember Norwegian being mentioned in the nomination, but I will defer to Rachel on the.
Find it and let you know.
That's a good catch if it's in there. That is something we should clarify.
Okay, thank you. And one other question, and of course I'm not finding my newspaper clipping. There was some list of projects, and here it is, projects that were approved, and this church has a project listed. I'm wondering, Rachel or Ginny, if you can tell us what's planned for this site. Just seeing if I can find the listing here. Do you know offhand what I'm talking about?
Is
I
it
can
a
jump in?
Yeah, if it's tax credit projects. Yeah.
Project proposal for Calvary Lutheran. Can you tell us what they're planning to do?
Yeah, so the congregation, like a lot of congregations, is very small now. And so they are working with Trellis, which used to be CHDC, the Community Housing Development Corporation. So the education wing and parish house will be affordable housing. And then the sanctuary space will be used as kind of community gathering space that'll still be left open, and cavalry will continue to hold services there on the weekends, but there'll be a tax exempt user, I think, is the category of their use. They're no longer the property owner.
And the uses that are planned don't have any effect on the nomination?
Because they're using the Historic Preservation Tax Credit Program, all of the changes to the building will meet the Secretary of Interior standards. So those standards state that once the project is done, the property will maintain its eligibility.
Thank you. Else, I'm not seeing any raised hands here.
I see Board Member Stark still has his hand up, or is that left over? Okay. Might be a mistake.
It's evidently left over. John has removed
Left
his
over.
hand. Yeah. I believe that Board Member Stark asked his full complement of questions. He's not allowed to ask any more questions about this nomination. He had like 5 of them, right? Anything
I love
else?
the enthusiasm.
Do we have a motion to approve?
This is Board
Member
Member
Schuelke.
Warner. I so move. Oh,
Go ahead, Mary. This is your final. I'll second.
There we go.
thanks.
Board Member Warner makes the motion. Board Member Schuelke seconds. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call time. Board Member Decker.
Aye.
Board James.
Aye.
Board Member Koski.
Aye.
Board Member Lavasser.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
Board Member Schuelke.
Aye.
Board Member Salmonson.
Aye.
Board Member Stark.
Aye.
Board Member Warner.
Aye.
Board Member Anderson votes aye. Thank you very much. Ginny, are you ready for another building?
I'm ready. This is our last one, y'all.
It has vacation tonight, right?
We go
Plus,
back and forth. It's a strange thing.
Minneapolis, Hennepin County.
Yes. Right. Just to confirm, y'all are seeing the presentation slide. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So this is the Coliseum Building and Hall in Minneapolis, Hennepin County. Lauren Anderson from New History is the author. The Coliseum Building and Hall is located at 2708 East Lake Street in the Longfellow neighborhood of South Minneapolis. Originally constructed in 1917, the building remains the most prominent edifice at the historically significant intersection. There is one change to note in the nomination. After the nomination was sent to the State Review Board, the preparer found documentation that the final edition was not added circa 1971 or 72 as indicated here, but circa 2000. The final nomination has been updated to reflect the new information. So here we see a site plan of the building with the construction dates indicated, as well as a map of the Longfellow neighborhood and surrounding area. The streetcar transfer point at the intersection of 27th Avenue South and East Lake Street was a bustling location even before the Longfellow neighborhood was fully developed. By 1912, the intersection held multiple 1- and 2-story buildings with only a single building, the IOOF Hall, raising to 4 stories. At left, we see the streetcar map from 1936 with the Coliseum building location shown in the red star, and at right is the 1936 photograph of the building. Designed by L.J. Johnson, the Coliseum was originally developed in 1917 by the Headwall Investment Company to hold retail, office, and assembly space. An addition, architecturally identical to the first building, but nearly doubling the size, was added to the northern elevation in 1923. A smaller addition, this one far more modern, was again added to the north elevation in 1955. A final addition was constructed above the 1923 addition in circa 2000. At left is the west and south elevations of the property, camera facing northeast. At right is the west elevation in 1961. Shortly after construction, the building's first floor held a wide array of businesses. The second floor was dedicated to office space, and the third floor held an entertainment venue called the Coliseum Hall, which served as a social space for dances and gatherings. By the 1920s, the intersection was known as Downtown Longfellow, and was the hub of the neighborhood's commerce, offering a combination of shopping, dining, entertainment, and professional and blue-collar services. The Coliseum, as the most prominent building on the block, contributed significantly to the area's success. At left is the west elevation, camera facing southeast. At right is the column at the primary southwest entrance, camera facing southeast. Like the original building, the 1923 addition maintained the mix of expected tenants and office spaces. Basement space of both buildings was also dedicated to recreation space, housing a pool hall and bowling alley. At left is the east elevation, camera facing northwest, and at right is the east elevation again, camera facing southwest. A long-time tenant and anchor of the building was the E.B. Freeman's department store. Begun in 1914, Freeman's moved to the newly completed Coliseum building when it opened in 1917. Beginning in one storefront, the store slowly expanded so that by the 1930s, Freeman's occupied a large part of the first floor commercial space. The department stores appears to have offered a comprehensive array of goods that was the only store of its kind located in the Longfellow neighborhood. At right, we see the north and west elevations, camera facing southeast. At north, we see roughly the same view in the 1960s. In large part due to Freeman's, the decision was made in the late 1920s to add a parking lot to the north of the building. The four-sided decision meant that Freeman's and the Coliseum building as a whole was well positioned to accommodate automobile traffic, supporting its continued success. The demise of the streetcar line in 1954 and the broad changes to retail in the post-war era did not result in the immediate abandonment of 27th Avenue and Lake Street commercial node. In fact, in the mid-1950s, a study of Minneapolis shopping areas listed 27th and Lake Street as one of the 8 super shopping districts in the city of Minneapolis. At left, we see the north elevation, camera facing southwest, and at right is roughly the same view in the 1960s. Through the early 1970s, the Coliseum building remained a vital part of 27th and Lake intersection. The building's continued relevance to the Longfellow neighborhood is seen through the stability of tenants and uses through the mid-century. Most importantly, the continued use of the first level by Freeman's department store through the early 1970s provided a solid anchor tenant that continued to draw shoppers. At left, we see the first level of the 1923 addition, camera facing south, and at right, we see the first level of the 1917 building, camera facing southwest. The 1955 northernmost building addition, designed by prominent architectural firm Bettenberg, Townsend & Stoll, provided 2 entrances on the building's north elevation, promoting the use of the parking lot and allowing the Coliseum to continue to compete with the suburban shopping experience. At left, we see the second level, the 2000 addition, camera facing east. At right is also the second level, the south stair of the 1917 building, the cameras facing north. With the departure of the Freemans in 1973, the Coliseum building ceased to be a central commercial hub for the neighborhood. However, the ballroom remained in operation until the mid-1980s. As one of Minneapolis's last operating ballrooms, it drew people from outside the neighborhood and even outside the Twin Cities. The building continued to be occupied and underwent multiple partial redevelopments between the 1980s and 2020. At left is the third level of the 1917 building, camera facing southeast. And at right is the second level of the 1917 building, camera facing northeast. Following the murder of George Floyd in May of 2020, Lake Street became the heart of protest and civil unrest. Buildings along East and West Lake Street, especially at this intersection, experienced extensive damage. Following the destruction in the spring of 2020, the Coliseum building was vacated. Here we see the lower level, 1917 building, camera facing northeast on the left, and at right is the first level of the 1917 building, camera facing northeast. The period of significance for this property begins in 1917 with the construction of the building through the closing of Freeman's in 1973. The area of significance is local. The National Register criterion is A. The areas of significance are commerce and entertainment and recreation. The Coliseum building and hall epitomizes the commercial development of the Longfellow neighborhood, becoming the centerpiece and anchor of the commercial area centered at a prominent streetcar intersection. Furthermore, it retained its important role from the height of the streetcar era through the transition to automobile-oriented development in the mid-century. For these reasons, the building is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. The current owner is participating in the state and federal historic tax credit programs. The property has been certified by the National Park Service as a certified historic structure through the Part 1 application process. There is one piece of correspondence for this property. On February 10th, 2022, Robert Skalecki from the City of Minneapolis Community Planning and Economic Development Department writes that their January 18th, 2022 meeting, the Heritage Preservation Commission of the City of Minneapolis unanimously recommended listing of the subject property to the National Register of Historic Places.
Thanks, Ginny.
Certainly.
Anyone in the audience have a comment, statement, anything for the group? Okay. Anyone on the board have any comments, statements, questions for Ginny or each other? Board Member Koski has his hand up.
Thank you.
Hmm?
So I am lowering my hand. There we go. I'm very happy to see this building come before us. I live just 2 blocks west and 5 blocks south of the Coliseum building. And it's one of the, sadly, oh, excuse me, few remaining neighborhood landmarks that we have in this area. So I'm very glad to see that it is getting renewed interest and potentially a new life. I have one comment to make about one of the figures in the figure section on page 5. If you live in South Minneapolis, you know that we can be sticklers about our neighborhood boundaries. And there is a red line around an area that is neither the Longfellow neighborhood nor the Longfellow community as defined by the source johnweeks.com. So I would just think the applicant or the preparer should take a look at that again and clarify the boundaries. I think it actually makes more sense that it would be the Longfellow neighborhood, because there are other commercial nodes within the larger Longfellow community area. That's my only comment.
However, the red boundary that you're talking about does not match either of those things. Is that accurate?
That's right.
So you're suggesting that we take a look at the Longfellow neighborhood boundaries and map those
Yes.
accordingly? Thank you.
Board Member Warner.
I just had a few comments. One was I was super curious to see that there was a housewives union. And so now I want to know more about that. Not for this nomination, just total personal curiosity. I was super impressed that the suburbs had played in the basement in terms of practicing. But my question is on the ghost signage. So when there's a restoration of a building like this in terms of historic tax credits, is the sign considered part of it that they would try to bring it back, or does it stay ghosted? Do you know how that's typically handled?
I do not. I know that the ghost sign, if it is part of if it advertises the primary commercial entity for which the property is eligible, it is considered contributing. My guess is that they would probably prefer that it be ghosted as opposed to reinvigorated with new paint, but I would defer to any of my colleagues or Lauren, who has more experience with what things look like after a tax credit project than I do, if anybody has any further comments. Yes, there are board members that also would know this better than I would, so I'm gonna.
Hey, this is Lauren Anderson from New History. Yeah, and I can just say that I know plans for the rehabilitation are still being developed at this time, so I can't speak to, what will be proposed, but certainly, as Jenny mentioned earlier, this will be a certified rehabilitation, and so all work will follow the Secretary of the Interior standards, in regards to signage and otherwise.
Thank you.
Yeah. John, I think that you were talking, but you were muted. Do you know how the National Park Service tends to handle this? Can anyone hear Board Member Stark?
No, can't. John, you're muted. John Stark, you're muted.
Oh no.
Now you're listed as muted again, John.
Does that work?
Yes,
Ah,
thank you.
my plug got pulled. In the past, I have gently cleaned ghosted signs to try to enhance it and blend the masonry around it if it's painted on a masonry wall. But it would be preferred definitely to keep it as it is, because if you're repainting it, it's not the original sign any longer.
Thanks, John.
Other comments or questions?
Oh, John Decker.
Board Member Decker, go ahead.
Yes, Board Member Decker, is there any mention of structural damage from the fires and stuff that the building hit? I mean, does anybody know?
Board Member Stark, do you have an answer to that question?
I don't know if anybody.
No, I was waiting for the next question.
Okay. Lauren, do you happen to know anything? I do not, if it's not in the
Yeah.
nomination.
Oh,
You know, and I'm not aware of any documented structural damage per se. There is, you know, obviously significant damage to finishes at the interior of the building. But in terms of documented structural damage, I'm not able to provide that answer.
okay.
Board Member Stark.
Yeah, on there's a couple little questions here, or just one really question. There's a mention on section 7, page 10 and 11 of a primary source for some information, but it doesn't footnote it or tell you what that primary source is. So I'm just wondering about the credibility of that when it's just noted as primary, if it should be listed.
It should be listed. That was simply an error. I will
Okay.
get with Lauren and make sure we can get that cited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll definitely make sure that's corrected. I'm sorry, Board Member Stark, could you name the page number again?
Oh, it's in section 7, page 10 and 11.
Okay,
There's
thank
two
you.
mentions of it.
Any other comments or questions?
I just have a quick question, Chris, Board Member Schulke.
Thank you.
So the street level part of the building is obviously needs a lot of work. So, and this is a remedial question. So how much integrity or historical detail of a building must be present in order for it to be considered eligible?
That is the big question. Yes. So in order to be eligible for listing in the National Register, the property must have significant integrity to convey its historic significance. So in this case, because we're listing under criterion A in the area of commerce and entertainment and recreation, the primary thing that we're looking for is that it continues to resemble a commercial building on the exterior and the interior, and that it has that primary, that we're able to understand where the social engagement and the social hall was within the interior. The changes to this building were definitely greater as far as the interior layout than we would typically want to see if we had, of course, an ideal situation. However, the changes continued to promote a commercial endeavor at the first and second floor. And then at the third floor in the Coliseum Hall space, what we believe to be the space was there were only partial height walls. So there were cubicles and they were built in as opposed to furniture, but they were only partial height, so you could still get a sense of the mass, the volume of the room. It was not ideal, but because of the excellent exterior integrity, the SHPO and the National Park Service felt that the changes to the interior were did not diminish the ability to understand what the building functioned as. So in this case, there was a lot of emphasis put on the exterior, the location, and the commercial setting, as well as the exterior massing and detailing.
Yeah, I think it's highly worth it. Obviously, I just hope you can make that case to the keeper.
They have certified the building for listing. So through the Part 1 process, they have the keeper has already agreed that the property is eligible.
All right.
So we're waiting for the nomination to kind of solidify that. They of course can change their minds. Additional photographs, although there are more photographs in a part 1 than there tends to be in the nomination, but any additional documentation or a reread or a rethinking of this property could result in a not eligible finding, but it's highly unlikely. They have seen this property before.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Anything else from anyone else? So this is Board Member Anderson, and I would just like to toss into my fellow Anderson here, Lauren, my thanks for a great read and something that was so thorough that when I got to your charts about the occupants and users of the building, I had the sense that I was looking at a historic district nomination. It was that complete and that thorough. And I think that you probably could have done the job just fine without going to all that work. I'm not saying you shouldn't have, because it was to be able to see it. It revealed a lot that I didn't expect to see. And so I just wanted to thank you for a really nice job.
Yep, congratulations. Good nomination.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson. It was a pleasure to write, and we're excited to see this building getting reused.
Anyone else? Board Member Warner is getting the honors tonight about making the motions. Are you ready to do that, Board Member Warner?
I am.
Okay.
Board Member Warner, I make a motion that we approve this for the National Register.
Thank you very much. And is there a second?
Board Member Solomonson, second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All righty then. We'll vote. Board Member Decker?
Aye.
Board Member James?
Aye.
Board Member Koski?
Aye.
Board Member Lavasser?
Aye.
Board Member Olson?
Aye.
Board Member Schulke?
Aye.
Board Member Solomonson?
Aye.
Board Member Stark?
Aye.
Board Member Warner?
Aye.
And Board Member Anderson also votes aye. So that's that. Thank you very much. Ginny, Amy, Dennis, anything else?
I have nothing else.
Okay, then I guess we need a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait. Board Member Warner, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
Oh.
Well, I think that's the big honor. I know when people retire at Augsburg, that's one of the things they get to do. They get to move to adjourn their final faculty meeting.
I so move.
Thank you. And that does it, right?
Thank you, Mary.
Everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Mary,
everyone.
I'm gonna miss you, Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll miss you all too. Thanks.
Take care.
Night, folks.
Night.